Now, just one quick word from my father that we needed for Shleima.
Amen.
In other words, he says in Pirkei Avos, everybody's familiar with the Mishnah, Ezehu Chacham Haleimid Mikol Adam.
Yeah.
So we say, who's a Chacham who learns from everyone? So everyone learns it that it's sort of a rhetorical question, and there's an answer. My father said there might be another pshat there, that actually the whole thing is not a statement but a question mark. And that is, Ezehu Chacham. Do you think a Chacham is Haleimid Mikol Adam who learns from everybody else and just a parrot repeats what other people say? That's not a Chacham. A real Chacham is who whatever they learn, they actually take ownership and make it part of their own, not just repeating what other people say. Anyway, the Gemara we're up to today's daf is that pay test, but today's Shabbos.
From Chachma, you got to move to Bina and to Das. In other words, you got to develop that Chachma.
Exactly. So you have to make it your own. Okay, let's begin. So Motzei Shabbos Kedus, Parshas Vorchim El, and Parshas Re'ei. We're up to the Pei Tes Amud Aleph. I understand you're only up to the Gemara that Pei Ches Amud Beis. Bekitzer.
Everybody mute themselves.
Where are we? Yeah. That's right. Today's daf is the Pei Ches Amud Aleph, and you're up to the Pei Ches. You're up to Pei Zayin Amud Beis in the Gemara. So let's go through quickly. The Mishnah tells us that if you have one get, but you wrote it over two columns, it's kosher as long as the witness is signed at the very end. If they're signed on the sides, in the back, on top, it's no good. And then we said a number of other unique cases. So, that like you wrote one get top down, and the other get you wrote top up, and the Eidim are right in between, sandwiched between, they're both possible, because the Eidim are not really signing either get. If one get is written top down, and the other one is written bottom up, and again, the Eidim are in between, so then we say whichever one's the Eidim's signature are closer to, then it's good. And what happens if the one was written, they're both written top down, and then another one underneath that top down, and the Eidim are in between? Again, whichever direction the Eidim's signature are facing, those are that's the get that is kosher. Okay, so says the Gemara. In the first case, we're talking, so in the second case, we're talking about two gittin. The first case, we're talking about one get that straddles two columns. So how do you know it's one get? The leichus, why aren't we worried? Maybe originally there were two gittin on the same parchment and two different columns on the parchment. And what happened was that on your own get, on the get on the right, for example, your own get, you had a number of conditions there on the bottom with witnesses signed, and then you change your mind. What do? So therefore, what you decide to do is you're going to cut off the very bottom of your get, so there's no witnesses there, and all the Tanoim are erased. And then you'll cut off the top of the get on the other side, so it doesn't look like it's a second get with a different date. You cut off the get. Now, the second get on the other side is higher up. It was raised higher on the parchment than yours. So you cut off all the parts that are above yours. And basically, all you have left there is the very end of the get, the standard text of the get, and your get sort of flows right into it with the witness signature. And the problem is that the witnesses did not sign your get; they signed another get.
But wouldn't that mean that you got two documents?
We're talking about two different documents on the same parchment, but the one on the right is lower down, the one on the left is raised higher.
Yeah, if you're cutting them off, you've got to cut there's got to be two separate documents.
What are you talking about?
The top of one and the bottom of the other.
We learned before you can have 5 people on the same document. But what you have here is that you have here 2 separate gittin on one parchment, side by side, but one was raised high and the other.
Side by side, okay.
And each one had their own thing, and all you're cutting off is the top and the bottom. So the bottom, you got rid of your witnesses and Tanoim. The top, you got rid of the signature. So now you made it appear as if it's all the same get, but really it isn't. So it's a apostle get. How can we accept it? And obviously we're talking about we don't have the witnesses before us to ask. Says the Gemara, why aren't you worried? Maybe there were really 2 gittin bisramal is mandekama, and you have and what you did was you have the time, the date of your first one, of the one on the right, and the aid in the basa, and you're going to use the witnesses from the one on the left, which is the other get, the gazia, and you completely cut off was man the basa, the top part of the get on the left, so you remove the dates and all that, and the names of the other people there, and the aid in the kama, and the witnesses on the first part that might have had some conditions down there. You know why? there's a blank part of the parchment underneath the right side. So obviously you didn't cut anything off because you're only blanks in the middle of a document. So it must be that the document already, whatever that column is, ended, and therefore it's obvious it's the same get that straddles two columns. Says the Gemara, okay, but maybe Vidilma, perhaps Zman de Basra Megas Gazia. Okay, maybe he didn't cut off the bottom, but maybe he cut off the top. Which, why would he have done that? If he didn't cut off the bottom, there's no problem of conditions. What's the issue here? Maybe he wrote a get for his wife, and then he changed his mind. The moment he changed his mind, that get becomes possible. You cannot use it again. If later he wants to divorce her again, he cannot use a get that he canceled. He has to write a new get. This is how Rashi learns. And therefore, he decided, you know what? I'm going to use the get that's on the left. It wasn't for my wife, but still I can use that one there. And I'll just cut off the date, and it'll look like it's one. So I didn't cut off the bottom. I just cut off the top. Moran says just like that there's a gap, this margin on the bottom. We're talking about there's a gap above as well. There's a gap above as well, and therefore, obviously, there's nothing else written there. There was no date cut off. And Taisha learns from here that technically, obviously, you don't need to have any margins on a get, because the Gemara is saying in this case we're talking about there was a margin, a top, a margin on the bottom, which means technically you don't need any margin. But Taisha says, nevertheless, the meaning is that we do, but you don't necessarily need any margin. And what's interesting is that Rashi says that when you change your mind about a get, you disqualify the get. You can no longer use it. Other Mefarshim, other Rishonim have different shot. But Taisha brings over here from an interesting Baal Taisha. I wonder who this person is. In the second Taisha at the top of the page, Taisha says over there, he doesn't like Rashi Pshat because there's a Rav Nachman that says you can reuse the same get again. How is he going to learn Pshat? And Taisha says, Rabbeinu, the fourth line Taisha says, Rabbeinu Ezra Hanavi answers, who is Rabbeinu Ezra Hanavi? A Baal Taisha. Never heard of him. It's interesting to know who he is, who he was. And anyhow, what Taisha makes a difference is if a get was finished and you change it, and then you change your mind, then you want to use it again, maybe you can, according to Nachman. But if the get you stop midway, then once you cancel, it's over. You terminated the shlichus, and now when you appoint somebody else to finish the get, it's like a new get, and you're only writing half the get. It's no good. But anyway, interesting. If anybody knows who that Ezra Hanavi is, we can do some homework. It'd be nice to know. Okay, back to the Gemara. Says the Gemara, "V'dimla imluchi imluch." Maybe he changed his mind because maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he wrote half a get and changed his mind. Then he wrote the other half a get, which is possible. The Gemara answers, no, we're not worried about that either. Even though, forget, it's not a second get. It's all the same get. Nobody cut anything off. But maybe he himself, paused, decided not to give a get, and then he changed his mind. Says the Gemara, because the words that are straddling both sides of the page are words that usually put together. Which words? The cost of wrote Hareat Milmata Umuteres B'Maila. In a get you write, you're mutter to the whole world. Hareat is the last line on the bottom, and the next part of it, Muteres L'Chaladum, is on top. It's right in the middle of a sentence. People, when they change their mind, they don't change their mind in the middle of a sentence. You change at the end of a sentence. So obviously, it's he did not change his mind in the middle. So maybe he did. Maybe it happened. To that extent, we're not going to be worried. Rabashi says, the Yediyah, you can tell mitachta the Megillah. You can tell from the parchment, the way they used to make the parchment, they stretch it out and everything else. They would put rocks on the ends of the parchment to hold it down, and then they would scrape off the middle of the parchment. Rashi says that it's darker one part of the parchment than another, so you can tell that this is parchment intact, and therefore nobody tampered with this parchment. Nobody cut anything off. Rashi is dealing with all the questions we just dealt with. Okay, the Mishnah says, Chosmu Eidim B'Rosh Daf, the Eidim that's signed on top of the Daf. Remember, it says Eidim at the sign underneath, the sign on top, on the sides, and the back, no good. So when it's not so, but Rav Chosim Minatzad, Rav used to sign from the side. So when it answers, Chosim B'Shigad Klapik, he wrote it on the side, but he had the top of the letters facing the contents of the get, so therefore it's a good enough signature, as if they're saying we agree with what it says in the get. So it says that for example, this was top bottom, and then on top above that you wrote another. There's a second get, and that get was top, top up. So therefore, the two tops are facing each other. One is you read the normal way, top down. The other one you read top going up. and the Eidim are signed in between. The Eidim enter, and it says the Shnei Psulim Apostle. Why? According to you, it doesn't matter where you sign, it's only a question of which direction you're facing. Well, obviously they sign, either their letters are facing the get that's on top, or they're facing the get that's on the bottom. Is which one is facing the Ksav? Well, is Chashin and become Kasher. So we answer Hassam over there. You assume that he signed in a horizontal way, and the question is which direction he's facing. No, the Dom Lekivra is like a bolt on a door. You sign in a vertical way, and therefore it's not facing either star. It's facing the empty space. It's vertical, and therefore it's sandwiched between the two gittin, but it's in a vertical way, so it's not facing either get. So say for the next case, the Tani where it says, let's say one get you wrote top down. And then a get above was top down. So two gittin, one, each one was written in the proper order, but one above the other. The Eidim, the M, so the Eidim are between. And then it says, Eidim nikrim b'seifer kosher, wherever the Eidim direction is, that's kosher, whichever way they sign. But you're telling me they sign in a vertical way. How can either get be kosher? It's not facing either get. The Domik Ivra, if you tell, and the Mishnah is always talking about the same case, the way the Eidim sign. If it's like a bolt and they sign it vertically, lav bahade high mikra, lav bahade high mikra. You cannot, it's not facing either get. Somebody says you're right. So how can Rav, you're right. If you sign on the side, I don't care where it's facing, it's no good. So if so, how did Rav sign on the side? So Rav did not sign Gittin on the side, but this guy have a chasam. He was signing summonses from the Bezdin, and he would sign on the side, which is very different than a get, which has all of these specific rules how one should sign. Then the Mishnah said,
You asked about Ezra Hanovi. I looked it up for you. Okay, he was a Talmud of the Ri from Mont Contour, and he was the Ben Talmud of Hoyub Maram in Rothenburg.
No, the question is, why is he called Ezra Hanavi? Ezra is his name. Why Hanavi?
Okay.
What's the story?
I'm trying to see if it explains it.
Okay, no problem.
He was from Mont Contour in France. Okay, but
we still need to know why he's Hanavi.
Okay.
But thank you very much for that.
He said that Hanovi Eino Toy Kavod Balma, Gedatum Shokri Machem Elo Kefisha, Hoyak Keshe Pulosoi Hanuvuit, Bemaime Arha Gula, Shechove Samuch, the Mano Shorabilize, Ezra. Okay. He was what's the name? He wrote. He was written at a time when the book called Ala Gula was written, and the time of and they claim that it's connected to him. That's why it's called Hanovi. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
All right.
Okay. Interesting. Get it says in the Mishnah. The second toward the end of the Mishnah. If a get was written in Ivrit and the Eidim signed in Greek, or is written in Greek and the Eidim signed in Ivrit, or one is the Ivri, one's the Yvonit, and so on and so forth. Get because the same. Then the Mishnah continues. Ksav Sefer the Eid, which we discussed at length a few times before already. Ksav Sefer the Eid kosher. That means that if the Sefer writes and there's another witness kosher, we had an argument whether the Sefer writes means the Sefer himself signed or the Sefer just wrote the contents of the get. We had a whole argument a long time ago whether Mili Memser Shliach or not. Rabbi Yossi says that Mili Le Memser Shliach, which means Rabbi Yossi holds that if you send a Shliach, he cannot appoint. You didn't give him a get. You just had told him to write. He cannot appoint someone else to write. But we did have a machlekes of Eimer Amru, which means if you instruct the shliach specifically, your job is to find someone else, what happens? Anyway, so Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah said that not like the other Mandamur says that Ksav Sefer means like Shmuel said. Shmuel said that the Sefer writes and he's a Sefer Muvik, then it's all right. Together with the aid, it's sufficient. And Rabbi Yirmiyah says, no, Chasam Sefer Shaninu. We need the Sefer to actually sign. And what's the chiddush? Then you have two signatures. Because we might be worried that the shliach was embarrassed. He was supposed to get two other people to sign, but he's embarrassed to ask the sefer just to write and not to sign. So he asked the sefer, which is incorrect. But according to Rabbi Yossi, that says that mili leim nims the shliach. It couldn't be that the shliach appointed the sefer, and therefore it must be that the baal bas, the husband himself, directly appointed the sefer, and that's the chiddush. Chasam sefer shenin am chizah ham mani Rabbi Yossi did follow Rabbi Yossi. Ahu ksuvas chasanim is once a ksuva. of Chassan, the Asir Kamed Avu, it came before Rabbi Avu. Rabbi Yadil Leila types, he recognized the signature straight away of the Sefer, who was an expert, and Ulechasimis Yod, he also recognized the Chatzad, he also recognized one of the witnesses' signatures, didn't recognize the other. So he recognized the Sefer's writing, he recognized one signature. So he thought, because the Mishnah says, Sefer, Ksav Sefer Ve'ed, he thought that you're lying that. On the Yirmiyah Chasam Sefer Shanimu. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, it doesn't mean the writing of the Sefer, it means the signature of the Sefer, so you can't rely on it. But Shmuel argued, and Shmuel said, no, it could even mean the writing of the Sefer, provided the Sefer was an expert, was a baki in these dinim. Then it says, Kosav Chanikosai, the Chanikosa kosher. If they write the family, but it means the family names, so the family names in those days, or it meant the nickname. So if he wrote the name and the family name, it is kosher. Chanikas Avos, the Braisa goes further. The Braisa says the Chanikas Avos, the family name of the parents, the ancestors, are also good enough. The Gittin's ad Yudaitis, that the family name up to 10 generations, you can't say, oh, it's possible, it's not really who you are. It's like you're changing your name. You can still go with your family name, your parents' family name, up to 10 generations, including. Only 3 generations, because your father was known by that particular name, and 3 generations you can continue running with that name and no longer. Not like the first opinion that says 10 generations continue running with that name. Kaman Ozla, according to who does it go? Chanina said, Kosav Chanikas Avos Begittin Al Gimel Deitis, it only goes valid for 3 generations. I knew. Come on, give Shimon Elazar. Goes like Shimon Elazar. Amar Avon says, my Kra, what pasuk? It says in the pasuk, Yisoylid Bonim Ubnei Bonim. It says in the pasuk that you will have children and grandchildren. And then it says V'nashant. So Bonim, it's you, your children, your grandchildren, 3 generations. Then it's V'nashantim, and then it says you become old. And then you will serve Rabbi Zorn and all that. So that's how we know 3 generations is considered like one family. And in fact, we have an expression that At Kan Nachme, a grandfather has Achmanos and grandchildren, but when it gets to the Urei Neklach already, it's a bit distant. Until 7 different royal families, all of them worshipped Avodah Zarah, Elohim. And the way Rashi explains, we're only talking about Malka Yisrael, we're not talking about Malka Yehuda, even though Malka Yehuda had plenty of Rishonim from Chizkiah's father and Chizkiah's son and plenty others, but they all lived at the same time, and these terrible families lived by Israel, and they were they were short-lived in Malka Yehuda than Malka Yisrael, so we count the Malka Yisrael. Elohim, these are they. Yeravim ben Avot, Uvosha ben Achaya, Acha ben Imini, V'yeyu ben Nimshi, Upikei ben Amalio, Menachem ben Gedi, V'hishaya ben Elah. It says in Pasuk that Umullah, you led this Hashiva, that that it's lonely. Somebody gave birth to 7 different ones, and Nafsha, I guess it's swelled in nefesh, that the sun set in the middle of broad daylight, instead of being broad daylight, the sun set. They became embarrassed and humiliated. So we see there has to be what? Umullah, you led as a shiva, that Yerushalayim will become, lonely and desolate after had 7 different families. We learn that again from the pasuk. Hashem said that they'll do Avodah Zarah, Banim u'bnei Banim.
So even though it's Malchi Yisrael, you're still referring it back to Yerushalayim?
Or Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, I guess it's still Eretz Yisrael. And we're talking about the whole, we're talking about the chumrah, I guess, of the whole Eretz Yisrael. And when 7 families go through, and as I'm going to explain, one of the names are Hisheh ben Elah, by Hisheh ben Elah, who's the last one you mentioned. It says over there, it says in the pasuk that he did bad. That was, he allowed the Avodah Zarah to fester. But it wasn't as bad as the preceding kings before him. And it says Allah Shalmaneser Melech Ashur. By him came up Shalmaneser, the king of Ashur, and that's when the Asaras HaShvatim were taken away, and so on. And that's considered the beginning of Golus. Oh, so what did he do exactly? Amalu, if he's not as bad as the previous kings, why did the Golus happen by him? Amalu, he said, Oisim Pardisias, those guards, that Shehoishiv Yeravim Adrach, Yeravim placed guards on all the roads that shouldn't have to go to Yerushalayim, so he made their own things. And those guards would, and every king after Yerovam kept those guards in place. And those guards, Yerovam said, they shouldn't have to go to the regel. Bo Hosea came along Hosea, ubitlan. He removed them from the posts. He allowed the Yidden to go to Yerushalayim. But because he continued to worship Avodah Zarah, the Yidden worship Avodah Zarah, and he did not in any way encourage or try to stop them, is became the only Yisrael Ledegel. The Yidden continued to behave the way they behaved. They did not go Ledegel. Is what? Now they should all go into captivity. Now it's very hard to understand what's going on here. So the other kings who actually were idol worshippers and they did terrible things, the goals didn't happen. Hosea, who removed the guards, he said, you want, you can go to Shlaim. He just wasn't, he didn't protest against them for the Avodah Zarah or that, therefore he was punished. As if to say that if we have the ability to stop someone else from the Avodah, is worse than the people who actually do the Avodah, in a way, because the people who do the Avodah, they can't control themselves. You could control yourself because you know that it's an Avodah Haraya, you're not doing it. So you have a responsibility to stop. We had more Shabbos. That the Shalayim was the Skani were the first ones killed because they could have been Meicha, they could have stopped them. So why were they the first ones? Let's kill the Rishayim, then kill them. No. Being in a position where you have a capacity to influence others and you don't use that position in a way is worse because you know that it's wrong. And yet you decided not to meddle and not to mix in, and that's
they didn't need the guards anymore because the Masorah of going to Yerushalayim had finished, or people didn't know they needed to go. So it's just a continuation of his predecessors. He doesn't even need the guards.
That's what, but the Tanakh gives him credit for it. It says Shaloi Haya Kemalke Yisrael Asher Lefanav. Clearly, it says that he was better. So obviously, there was a good point in what he did. But as Rashi says, Hayil ve'ein moiche biyadam. Because he wasn't Meicha, that's why the goals happened in his time. I mean, it's an interesting insight. Amar Chizda says Rav Chizda. Amar said, I'm allowed to say Amar Chizda, Amar Abimya. Dorash v'le mem Hashem. I see it says the pasuk in Rashi in the Chumash. Yishkar Hashem al ra. Hashem hastened the terrible things that he promised, the admonishments that he gave to the Yidden. He hastened it. He brought it up because he's righteous. Al kol ma'asav, on everything that he did. By Yishkar Hashem al ra, and Hashem hastened it up. By Yivei brought it. What does that mean? What's so righteous about bringing the punishment early? Hashem did us a favor. That he brought forward the Golus Tzkiyo by 2 years, so that people who were taken in captivity 13 years earlier with Yechonya and Yaakov, they were scholars, they were still alive, and therefore the Torah was flourishing in Babel. So when the rest of the Eden came, there were yeshivas established already, and that a whole infrastructure to have a good Jewish community. The Chsibebe goes Yechonya, because the description is by Golus Yechonya, who was taken captivity. It says in the pasuk, Chadash v'Hamasged Elef, that the Chadash and the Masged, Chadash normally means a carpenter or something, v'Hamasged Elef, 1,000, and we're going to darshan. Chadash is Chedesh, Shebeshav Poischin, Nasa Hakra, such great scholars, when they used to talk, everybody else was quiet, they couldn't argue, they listened. And Masket, Kivin Shesoygin Shuvain and Poischin, once they closed a sugya, they didn't open again. Now, interesting. I mean, normal pshat the Gemara would be, the Gemara is trying to say how wonderful it was that they were all there already. So you would teach, as soon as they finished the sugya, no more questions, it was done, and they moved on. But Rashi actually is the opposite. The Rashi says, Kivin Shesoygin, if they did not know the answers to a question and they close up, they say, we don't know, nobody else would reopen it. Well, I'm not sure why Rashi has to learn that way. Why is Rashi learning this way? I'm not sure. The Kama, and how many were there? 1,000 of them. So in other words, they had a great community and they had a lot of infrastructure there. That was the tzedakah Hashem did. All said, you know what the tzedakah was? Hashem said there's terrible things that he's going to destroy the whole Israel, all be decimated. But by bringing it forward 2 years, it wasn't the gematria of 852, which is the Meshantim, so therefore it didn't fulfill all the curses that Hashem said. So here you learn now that Meheira, the Mori Alma, when Hashem says he'll do something quickly, is Tam the Meya v'chamisha v'tartiu, 852 years, because he said that I am going to destroy your Maya in a hurry, and he said that all in the beginning before they went to Yisrael, and it was 852 years later. That's considered by the Eibishter a hurry. The Taisa already asked, where did they worship Avodah Zarah for 852 years? And Taisa says yes, because the Pesel Micha, they brought the Avodah Zarah from Mitzrayim, and Micha brought it to Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, it's already considered as if they were worshiping Avodah Zarah from the beginning. Next Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, get Ma'usa. This next Mishnah, even though it's only a short Mishnah, is actually very important in halacha. The idea of a coerced get, the idea of prenups, is that a contravention of the idea not to have a coerced get, and all kinds of threats and you put in that if you don't give us a get, you won't get a certain amount of money. Is that considered coerced get? But as you see, you cannot coerce a get only in certain circumstances and only in a certain place. As the Mishnah says, get ma'usa, a coerced get, be Yisrael, if it's done in a Jewish court, kosher. Uvay v'cham, in a Goyish court, possible. However, now there's a big machlekes how to learn the next line in the Mishnah. However, so we'll learn one way. But a Goyish court, if all they do is chayvtin oisei, they beat him, they do all kind, they force it. But they say, asay mashi Yisrael imlach, go ahead and follow what the Bezdin says, then kosher. Others learn exactly the opposite. That when we say apostle, that even if the goyim say follow the Bezdin, that is possible. So there's a big machlekes, and you can see obviously the repercussions of this machlekes. Said the Gemara, Amrach Shmuel. Shmuel comes along and starts limiting the Mishnah. When we say a coerced get is kosher in a bezin, not always. Only get.
Isn't this what the Rambam understands, that where the Beis Din can force him to give a get? They beat him till he gives it.
Yeah, it's from here and the Gemara in Erchin and Basra. We will. I guess better when we get to those parts, because here the Rambam adds you have to say Reitza Ani. Koifen Oise Achayem Reitza Ani. It doesn't say that in this Gemara here. Nowhere does the Gemara here say that you have to force it, that he has to agree. It just says you can force him. Yet the Rambam says you have to say Reitza Ani. He has to at the end accede to this and say, yes, I'll give. And he explains, because every Yid has a neshama, and the neshama wants to do good. Your Yetzer Hara stops you, and therefore what we're doing is we're crushing the Yetzer Hara, so Yetzer Tov comes back out. Your neshama comes out. But so it's not from this Gemara here, and not everyone agrees. You have to say Reitza Ani.
Yeah.
But no one in this Gemara is mentioned. So now Shmuel, get to the Yisrael kosher. When is it kosher? Only if it's kedin. In other words, we learned in Gemara Ksuvas the ayins that there's certain cases of if the woman doesn't follow Das Yehudas, Das Yisrael. Certain cases when you have to divorce her and she either does get a ksuva, doesn't get a ksuva, depends on the situation is. Those kind of cases, Bezin will force the husband to give her a divorce. Or if let's say in a normal case where the husband doesn't really have to give her a get, and the Bezdin is going to force him to give her a get, possible. It is possible. Okay, so even in the Bezdin, it's only when it's in certain circumstances. Upaisa, it's possible and it's possible. What do you mean? The get is possible, right? If the Bezdin forced him in a case where they shouldn't have, the get is possible, which means that she's still a married woman. She needs another get, but at the same time, if the husband dies the following day, she cannot marry a kohen because it smells like a get. Over the oivdik chaven, by goyim it's a notch lower. So if it's kedin, if the goyim forcing you to get, which in those cases which are kedin, you have to then posel or posel, which means the get is not a valid get, so she has to receive another get. But if the husband dies, she cannot marry a kohen because it smells like a get. But shaloikedin, if the goyim force in a situation where it's not up to halacha that he has to divorce her, then I feel that but nothing happened. She can marry a kohen if the following day her husband dies. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. If you tell me that goyim have the ability to force, then mifsul like lifsul. Then if they skip the line. If they they have the right, then it's kasher, now it's kasher. Why are you telling me only the get is a sufficient to answer her on a kohen? She should be a free woman because the goyim have a right to force. No, you tell me the goyim have no right to force. If the goyim have no right to force, then the get is not valid. So why is she possible to a kohen? And Elaben saying, mifsul like lifsul, it shouldn't be possible to a kohen. Nothing happened. Oh, and Mashasha first came along, and he says, "Var Torah get mu'usa v'chavim kosher." He calls a big chiddush that according to the Torah, goyim can force you to give a get. But it's the Rabbanon who stopped it. And why? We don't want every single woman who's maybe not 100% happy. She will go. She will go to a guy and say, look, I'll pay you $100 and beat up her husband. And this way she'll be free from her husband. We don't want such a kind of life to completely tear the very fabric of a society or of marriage. Says the Gemara, they're asking a question of Mashasha. Here's something technically it's a valid get. So in other words, really a goyim eat is the same thing. So why if the goyim did shaloi kedin in a case where it's you don't have to give a get? Why over there the din is I feel like a get anybody, nothing happened. L'chayda goyim eat is the same thing, just like by yid. It was bezin forced in a case where they shouldn't have. We say that there's no get here, but still she can never marry a kohen because it smells like a get. By a goy, it should be the same thing. The nevish loikedin by Yisrael should be the same thing like a loikedin by Yisrael. Umifsa nami livsa, and therefore she should not be able to marry a kohen. Says the Gemara, el hodra mashasha bedusir. Mashasha is a mistake. But the Gemara Basa, they bring mashasha down, so they discuss, if it's a mistake, why do we record it in other places as well? Says the Gemara, the time of so let's understand what's the time. What's the time?
They're going to win.
If somebody can mute themselves, please. The time of my kedin, when it comes to kedin, why by a goy when the goyim, which technically we don't agree with Mashasha, goyim they force a get, there's no get. But if it's in a case where apidin the yid should have, the yid should have given a get, and by a Jewish court we say they can force him, and it's a totally good get. So then, if by goyim decided to force the yid to give the get in that particular instance, even though it's not really a valid get at all, the Chacham say, you know what, we're going to be goys that at least she cannot marry a kohen. Why? Because otherwise, they'll say if a goy forces us to do a pidin and nothing happened, then by yid also, if a Yiddish court forced to get, people say it's not a valid get, nothing happened. But really it is. So therefore we decide, you know what, a goy also, you should know, there is something happening here. There is a little bit of a get. And then people will understand something happened. They'll find out by Yid it's more than by Goy. Okay. My kid in the Yisrael Mechlich. That's why they could make a mistake and we say that, if they did not be and nothing happened by Goy, then probably nothing happened by Yid either. But in a case where the Goyim behaved in a way which not apidin, if the kedin Yisrael lemechad, to make a mistake that far, we don't go. Not even by Yisrael, if they did shaloi kedin, the only reason why we make that the get means something, we're worried that people think that if you force, it's not a proper get. So we said that even if they force not apidin, something happened. It's exera d'Rabbanan, and we don't make a double gzera to say that if a goy did it, we should ask it because if a yid did it, and if a yid did it, we ask it because if they did bedin, that's too far. Abai Ashkan Rabbi Abai once found Rabbi Yosef, the Yossi was sitting with Kamasa, he was forcing someone to give a get. Amalei said to him, Hanan had yoiches and we're not. In order to give a get to force, you have to be a mumch. You can only be a mumch in Eretz Yisrael. So how in the world can we force and give a get? So the time we learned every time you find a gathering of goyim, Alpha Pisha, the name Gittin Yisrael, even though they didn't like Yiddish didn't, you're not allowed to go to Goyish court. Shenemar says, you should place it before a Jewish court. You're not allowed to go to Goyish court, even if they paskin exactly like the Torah paskins, as the Chil Hashem, to go to a Goyish court and not to a bezin. That's one pshat. And Dobrach, another pshat, lifnehem means lifnehem v'loifnehed yotes. You have to, if a court to actually mete out justice and to be able to coerce people, they have to be mumchin. So Abaye asked Rabbi Yosef, we're not mumchin. So how in the world can we force a get? Amalei said to him, Anan shlichasayu ka'avdinan. We are the shluchim of the Bezdin in Eretz Yisrael. Midi dahabe ahadois v'havois. Just like when it comes to a normal commercial court, how can we paskin? Because we are shluchim of the Bezdin Eretz Yisrael, and therefore we have the capacity to force Gittin as well. So why can't we be a Bezdin today for knasim, for penalties, if somebody steals or somebody wounds somebody? So we answer, only things which are common. The mills like loans are common, or divorce are common. So there we are shluchim, we can do it. Of milsa the but things which are not common, we cannot do. So Tesa wants to know, so how can we be Makabal Tesa, the Rashba, the Rishonim will talk about, so how do we have Gerim today? On what basis are we Gerim today? And a Ger needs 3 Mumchin, we're not Mumchin. So you're going to have to say the same thing, that we are Shluchim. And the reason is because it's common, which is a little difficult to understand, because just a few days ago, we learned that Gatus is not common. We said Misa Shchich and Gatus is not common. Unless we're going to learn that Gatus compared to Misa is not common. But Gatus compared to penalties is more common, and therefore we are Shluchim. So the very beginning, and another question is, but in Yisrael today, there's no smicha. There's no real smicha that gives them the power to coerce. So how are we shluchim of a bezin that doesn't exist? So Teisha says we are shluchim from the people, from the bezin of 2,000 years ago of Yisrael. Not the shluchim of the current people of Yisrael, but the shluchim, the original bezin of Yisrael. Now, the Rashba said, but by Gatus it says, that we learn from a pasuk that we can make Gadim today. By the way, Teisha learns that a non-shlich l'sayab din, and there's a big machlekes in the very beginning of Choshen Mishpat between the Tzasa Choshen and the Nesivis, and that is this Mahatorah Midrabban? Because there's one opinion there that a non-shlich l'sayab is merely Midrabban. So then starts all these issues. That means all Geirim today are only Geirim Midrabban, because we don't have a proper Bezdin. Our Bezdins today have no smicha, proper smicha. And smicha is a chain that goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore, what are we? We're only shluchim of a bezdin from the times of the Beis Hamikdash. And according to the Nesivis, I think, or I can't remember which one, it's only midrabanan. And I think it's if it's only midrabanan, so the Gerim today are only midrabanan, which then starts all kinds of questions about getting married and Gittin, all kinds of questions. Can a ger be mighty somebody in the mitzvah in the Torah, because their mitzvah is only the rabbanon, and so on. But others say no, that this is mahatorah, a non-shlich hasayav is mahatorah, and therefore everything is ger is 100% mahatorah. Just like we cannot bring karbonas today, and part of the gerus is to bring a carbon, but since it's not shaykh today, it doesn't in any way impact on the gerus. They're 100% gerim. So same thing over here with the bezdin. So very interesting machlek is right in the beginning of Choshen Mishpat. Okay, let's continue. Says the Mishnah, now we're going to talk about rumors, the weight of rumors, and should we take them into consideration? Not to be lenient. If there's a rumor that this woman is divorced, it's not going to help anybody, but to be machmer. When there are rumors, and what's the definition of a rumor that we actually take? You said, because people gossip and malign other people all the time. And how many times do you find out the gossip never happened? But what's gossip that we say in halacha is considered something that we should take into consideration? Says the Mishnah. Yotze shema be'ir mikudesh. Let's say a rumor abounded that she is engaged. Now the big machlekes is showing her learn all of these gemaras here. We just learn Rashi's way. Rashi was talking about a girl who is single. She's single, and a rumor went around that today, as the Gemara will explain, she just got engaged. Remember, if she's single, then the chazaka is that she's still single. So if you're going to say that she got engaged 6 months ago, no, we don't take that at all into consideration. But we're saying that she's about to get engaged today. So in other words, it doesn't in any way interfere with the chazaka, because we're saying it's happening now. Yesterday, Shitaka was a single girl. And we say to who we got engaged. And there are other telltale signs that say that maybe there's some credibility to this rumor. What happens then? Hareze mukadeshes. Here's what I'm here. Hareze mukadeshes. Then we treat her as if she's engaged, and she's not allowed to marry anybody until she goes to that person and receives a divorce. What about there's a rumor around town that she's mukadeshes, that she's divorced? That she is divorced. Now, what do we do? We're going to believe that she's divorced and she's a free woman? No, but it means that she's married to a kohen. This is what we think right now. She's married to a kohen, and rumors are abound that she is divorced from the kohen. So we're going to be machmer. She can no longer live with her current husband, because if she is divorced, a kohen can't live with a divorcee, even though it's his own wife. He can't take her back. Is a harez u'megereshes. We have to be machmer, treat as if she's divorced. Provided that at the same time that you hear this rumor, there is no amasla, which means some kind of explanation, a ready explanation that sort of explains it away, that doesn't take it seriously. For example, if there's as we'll see, let's say there's the Mishnah explained right here, Eze amasla. What's a masla? Giddish ish players ishtoi. Let's say we say the rumor is that this person divorced his wife al tonight, but made a condition. So there's a masla right there. It doesn't mean she's divorced. Maybe the condition was never met. So therefore, it's not considered. Like it could be the get never happened. Zorak law. Now, as we'll see in the Gemara, there's two kinds of amaslas. There's an amasla where the rumor itself could be never happened, or there's an amasla where the rumor happened, but maybe something was done later to fix it up. So in the first case of a masla, we're going to have a machlekes whether the masla has to, no, at the same time that the rumor spread, they also spread the amasla. For example, the case of the Tanai. The Tanai is that in the get, there was a Tanai. So when they said the rumor, you heard that the uncle divorced his wife and he made this in this condition. Okay. So then we say they can continue living together because there's an amasla. Probably the Tanai wasn't thinking. But if they're living together, it must be that the Tanai was never met. But what happens? The rumor went around town that she was divorced. And then a month later, and then people seen it together and everybody saying, you can't be together. The Rabban will come in and force her to leave him. And then somebody came along a month later and said, there was a condition. That's too late. Maybe now you came up with a good excuse trying to undo the damage that was done. We don't trust it. But if it's in a masla, for example, that the rumor was she got engaged or she's married. And then a month later, another rumor came along and said they got divorced. That very couple got divorced. So this is an amasla, right? It ended the marriage. But this amasla is not in any way contradicting the original rumor. It's just saying something happened afterwards that fixed it up. So that in that case, that second amasla can happen a month later, 2 months later, doesn't make a difference. Okay, just bear that in mind.
What's the translation of a masla?
It's like an excuse, an explanation, explanation that why it's not an issue. This rumor is, why they thought the way they thought, and really nothing happened. So that's one. For example, condition. Another one is Zadala Kedusha. He threw to her Kedushin, and Safik Korav law, Safik Korav law. The rumor was that he tried to get her engaged. He threw a ring at her, but we're not sure, who's close to him, close to her, 4 amas, who's protected. So again, so there with the rumor there was attached an amasla. So therefore, it's not really good. It's Zuhi amasla. It's called a masla, which means we don't do anything about the rumor. Said the Gemara. Let me ask you a question. Vasin la Gavra, you're telling me that if in the case where she was the rumor was she was divorced from her husband, the Kohen, she can no longer live with her husband, the Kohen, right? So you're going to ask her a Gavra and her husband. Rashi laid down a rule which we'll soon see in the next plot. Any rumor that took place after they got married, since now the chazaki is that they are married, and this rumor did not take place before they got married, but only after they got married, will be ignored completely. For example, she got married to a Kohen. After she got married, all kinds of rumors abound that she was a Zaina or that she's a divorcee. We're not going to force them to divorce her unless we have clear proof, clear evidence. Rumors are not going to do it. Once you're married, we're not going to allow the rumors to affect it at all. Says the Gemara. So how do we understand the Mishnah? So the Gemara says we misunderstood Pshat in the Mishnah. This is what the Mishnah meant. When it says over here that there's a rumor that she was divorced, it's a continuation of the first part of the Mishnah. This very woman that got married, the Penuya, that got married. Then later on, another rumor started that she got divorced. Then that rumor is believed. But that's the amasla. But because the amasla is not contradicting the first rumor, it's just telling us how it fixed up. Even it came out later, we listen to it as well. First, the rumor came about that she was engaged. She cannot marry anybody else unless she gets divorced from this person. Mikudeshes and mugadeshes. What happens? The rumor was that she got engaged, and then another rumor came along and said that she got divorced. In this case, she's a mutter. Why? My time a coil v'shoivre. You have a coil, but you already have an explanation, or that which breaks it. Shoivre literally means breaks it. Is there? Amar Rabba says, Rabba, what happens? A rumor abounded that she was a mezana, and that she was nus to someone that makes her usher to live with a goy. For example, she had like a one-night stand with a goy or with an eved or somebody that is usher to her, an erva. Ain't chayshla. We don't take it too seriously. Why? Because when people spread rumors, they usually exaggerate, and therefore maybe she behaved in a very flirtatious way. So people that make assumptions she must have had nus. So and therefore they come to conclusions. That's what a rumor is. My time of Pritus they probably just saw her misbehaving. And that's why we don't take it seriously. That's what Rava says. However, it's not so simple. There's a machlekes tanoim. And what is it? What happens if you see a woman achel b'shuk? Her behavior is very promiscuous, let's say. Let's say she's eating out in the street in public, girgir b'shuk, she makes sure that her neck sticks out in public, heinika b'shuk, she nurses a baby in public, so there's no shame. Bikul and Rameir takes it. Rameir says then you have every right to believe that she was mazana, and if she behaves this way, and she has to leave her husband. Rabbi Kiva says, he also agrees if there are rumors, then she has to leave her husband. We do believe these rumors, but only if the women who are sewing and weaving out, they're the real gossipers, the hairdressers, whatever, these are the weavers, they know what's going on in town, and if they're talking about her behavior, then you know there's some truth to it, and she has to leave her husband. But Rabbi Yechon says no. So they disagree with Rava. Rava says it's probably just an exaggeration. Rabbi Kiva Meir says no, it isn't. However, Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri said that Rava agrees with Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri. Because if you're going to believe every rumor, you won't allow any Jewish girl that she can sit and live with her husband. Everyone has some kind of an enemy or somebody who's envious of them or jealous will start some kind of a rumor. And if you're going to say that every rumor we have to take into account seriously, and you're going to force them to leave their husbands, what kind of society are we going to live in? The Torah says only when you divorce your wife if you found by her an erva. Well, the Halal said the word also dover. You can dover. So we know that in order to establish a dover, you need witnesses. Malahal dover has to be clear. Afkan dover it has to be compelling. In other words, a rumor has to be based on some facts and witnesses. But if there are witnesses, then why is it a rumor? Because the witnesses are not around, as we'll see. Okay, we'll stop. Take a pause. We'll do another block for anyone who wants.